Hi, welcome to the second session of Sacred Storytelling. I'm Pastor Jenny MacLellan, pastor of Calvary Lutheran Church in Allendale, and I am here to share some thoughts with you around storytelling during this brief introduction to a story people. Ever since we began to put together words to make sentences, we have been telling stories. Everything from telling your friend about how your day was, to telling your child about a shared family memory. It's all storytelling. Some people claim that they're not storytellers, but that's simply not true. All of our communication, whether said or unsaid, is telling a story. The thing is, we are story people. Stories saturate our culture and cradle our histories. Some stories are told for the sake of teaching a moral, such as Aesop's fables. Other stories are told to rally support and encourage large groups of people, such as the World War II propaganda. And then there's stories that are true, but often not told or are hidden because they are painful, such as the stories of American slavery and the Trail of Tears. Our Christian faith and the history of the church is filled with stories, some of which are painful, such as the Crusades and the Spanish Inquisition, and others are stories that we are proud of, such as the Great Revivals. Like I said, we are story people. In fact, our faith began with storytelling through oral tradition. Oral tradition is information that is passed from one generation to the next by word of mouth. The first written words of the Christian faith were by St. Paul about 20 years after the death of Jesus. When Paul put words to paper, he was telling the story of Jesus. But the stories he told were not written to document the actual events of Jesus' life, but to help communities understand who Jesus was and his impact on our lives and in the world. Nowhere in his letters will you find the story of Jesus' birth or the parables that Jesus taught. Paul was more interested in the big picture, the core story of the Christian faith, the core story that is the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. By telling this story over and over again, the events of Jesus' life became meaningful to the early Christian communities. Author and contemporary Christian scholar Diana Butler Bass says, "We become ourselves as we tell stories. We cannot know ourselves apart from our stories, stories in which we are both author and actor." In her book, Christianity for the Rest of Us, Bass identifies the practice of testimony as an indication of spiritual growth in Christian communities. Although, unlike conversion stories of coming to Jesus, our faith stories are accounts of Jesus coming to us all the time. Our faith stories are not one-time events of the past, but are multiple stories that continue to unfold as the Holy Spirit continues to work in our lives. Telling a faith story is simply sharing a way about how you have been surprised by God's love, and stories about how you have been transformed in unexpected ways. Keep this in mind as you practice crafting stories. You will begin by shaping and honing a memorable and significant life event. Crafting a faith story will come later in another session. For now, practice telling stories, and remember, you are a storyteller already, and you have a great story to tell.